This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And for those of you who have listened to Avoid the Maze, you know it's about our journey in life. And today's journey is sort of remarkable. However, I don't think Fitz put this on her bucket list when she was growing up. I don't think she said, someday I'm going to get cancer and I'm going to see it through and I'm going to become stronger for it. I mean, who wants to get sick in their life? Nobody even wants to get a cold today. But we're going to learn about Fitz Kohler and fitness.com. And I'm so glad that you're with us because starting the new year, we all need a little bit of hope. And New Cleveland Radio for 2022 is talking hope. So give us a little bit of background, Fitz. Like, what did you think you wanted to happen in your life when you were a young kid?
Well, I'm going to say not only hope, but power and control of oneself, because I think
Love
that
it.
is really the most hopeful thing is how much power we do have over ourselves. But you know what? When I was a kid, at least as I recall back in grade school and my efforts, I wanted to help people. I just wanted to be a contributor. I'm a service-minded person. I'm a raging patriot, and I care a lot about others. And I demonstrated that as a youth by being in student government and trying to help people have fun. And I was the birthday clown at the skating rink, which was probably a really good precursor to what I do now. But yeah, I wanted to be a contributor, and I'm so grateful I pursued the career that I have. I played create a career, but going into that, I started teaching fitness at 14, and I've taught all around the world. I have a master's in exercise and sports sciences. So once I knew that I wanted to do it as more of a profession than a job, I decided, hey, I better go get the real deal credentials because I'm going to be managing people's spinal columns, hearts, lungs, and lives for a long time. And it's important to take, like doctors
Right.
do no harm, and that comes with knowledge. But yeah, I've taught fitness in all capacities, mostly via mass media as of the past couple decades. So TV, radio, books, magazines. I do a lot of corporate speaking, spokesperson work. And then I'm a race announcer. And that's actually this great gift in my career. Being a fitness professional is who I am, but the race announcing is this blessing because I host some of the largest, most iconic running events in the United States: Los Angeles Marathon, Big Sur, Buffalo Marathon, the Wonder Woman, the Justice League series. I don't bring together, race organizations bring together sometimes up to 30,000 athletes for me. And my job is to get them engaged, informed, entertained, but really I'm the ringleader for the fun. I make sure everyone who shows up feels welcome, wanted, informed, engaged, entertained. I make sure everybody has a blast at the start line. And then when they come through the finish line, I make sure everybody feels like a champion down to the very last person. And if that last person, I'd say those last 1,000 people that are pulling up the rear feel like, holy crap, that was a great day, and they made me feel special, then I've done my job. So yeah, I help people live better and longer. I make lots of noise. That's what I do.
Well, I love that. And, I love the theory that finishing the race, no matter where it is,
That's
you
right.
are you are your own personal winner.
Yeah.
And I remember when my youngest son decided that he wanted to run cross country. He was not a runner. He was very flat-footed, but he wanted to do it. And he had difficulty doing it because he was practically the last one to cross the finish line. And I didn't understand it back then. Okay. I wish I could go back 15 years when he was running and
Yeah.
really show him, hey, you won today. You finished.
That's right.
And I think we all have to take on that mentality because we all have different abilities.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, you said you started teaching fitness at 14. I mean, 14, you're supposed to be out there just having fun, not teaching.
Well, there's a couple things that go into that. I'm a worker bee. I've always been an earner. Even when I was 5, my dad would bring me into his office on the weekends to clean, and I loved making my $5 or whatever. I am an earner. I love working. It fuels me. But I blew my knee out playing soccer, and I ended up with an MCL repair, which was, I was on crutches for 8 months. I think it was a whole drawn out process with lots of physical therapy. And pre-surgery, I thought, wow, maybe pre-surgery, I had physical therapy, and I thought, maybe I'd like to do this. This is a great field. You get to help people. I like the gym environment, which I was new to. Had the surgery, came out. I had the cast on and staples. And then once the the surgeon took out the staple, sent me downstairs for PT. The PT instantly started messing with my incision, and I thought, "What? That's disgusting. No, thank you. I don't want to do that." But thankfully, when they released me, they told my mom, get her to the gym or she's going to re-injure this knee. So my mom lied. She said I was 15, so I could join Spa Lady in South Florida. It's a little women's gym, which was wonderful. And again, I really loved the environment. I loved exercising. I had learned a lot about muscles and how they worked. I started taking classes. I thought the instructors were so cool. And so at some point, I had been working at Cinnabon of all places in the mall. I was a typical teenager doing whatever I could to earn a buck. And I quit Cinnabon and I applied at Spa Lady. And, they said, have you ever taught classes? I said, no, but, I'd really like to learn and blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, what about Friday night? And this was a Tuesday. And thank goodness I'm a gamer, because I said, sure, I'll teach class Friday. And what did I know? I had only known from the classes I had taken. So I practiced a little routine in my bedroom mirror. And then Friday night, I showed up to about 30 women in the class. And I told them straight out, I said, listen, this is first class I'm ever teaching. So I'm going to do my best. When we're done, if you could give me some constructive feedback, I'll take it. And the class actually went pretty darn well. And at the end, they said two things, and I remember them very, very clearly. Number one, use your arms a little more. Apparently I was like grapevine and knees up, but I didn't do a lot with my arm. And then they said, you need to be a little louder. And it's so funny that anyone ever thought I was not loud enough, because I'm noisy. That's why people are #noisy when they talk about me. But yeah, I just fell in love with it, and I instantly started teaching as much as I could. And by the time I was 18, I had come to the University of Florida, taught on campus. And then I ended up getting a job teaching fitness on a cruise ship, traveling throughout Scandinavia, Russia. I did presentations in some of the countries. I came back to the University of Florida and instantly was cast in a TV show. And not only did I find that teaching to the camera was just as comfortable as teaching in a large classroom, but I met so many strangers that would reach out and say, oh my gosh, you've helped me lose weight and you've helped me do this. And I thought, holy cow, I really like reaching out of the box of my little gym circle. And so that's where I fell in love with mass media. And I haven't been in a gym setting in over 20 years. Everything I do is to reach as many people as possible. And I really like it that way.
I love that. Well, and especially the last couple of years. I mean, that's the way we have to do a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I know that about 4 or 5 months ago here in the Cleveland area, my gym contacted me and said, it's safe. You can come in. And I said, that's very nice. I'll keep paying my membership to keep my spot, but I'm not ready to be in that setting. And they now are doing some online training, which is very, very good. But, when we think of exercise, a lot of us think of it as, oh, this is painful. Why do I want to give up a half hour, an hour of my life each day, or 5 out of 7 days to work out? And I used to think that. I now ride a stationary bike just about every night. I missed it last night. Yesterday was just a lazy day. And I said, you know what? Got to give myself permission. But exercise doesn't have to necessarily be painful.
Nope.
So give us an idea of when you started this. Obviously, you were young, exuberant, had a lot of energy. You probably made some people, faint just watching you, because I can imagine that. But how do you help somebody who says, yeah, Fitz, I want you to help me, but you know what? I don't want to hurt.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting how many people disregard exercise. They just have no interest, or they think I can't. And really what exercise is movement. And it doesn't mean you have to move like a world champion Olympian. You just have to move. So right now you and I are sitting in chairs. If we start lifting our arms up and down, we're exercising.
Right.
And, I was blessed when I started out at this women's center. Not only was I teaching to young athletes and so forth, but I was teaching to an elderly population, and we would do sit to be fit, and we would exercise in the pool. So exercise is just movement, and it can be very gentle. And you look at our patients in the hospital with spinal cord injuries, the second they start wiggling their toes, they're exercising. And so it really just, we have to stop comparing ourselves to these Tom Brady or the folks running out around on Miami Beach with a thong. Exercise is not about looking hot in a bikini. And if you want to, great. I've never looked at a human and said, gee whiz, I got to help this person look hot in a thong. All I've thought is, how do I help this person live better and live longer? And it's interesting to me, most of us get up every morning, we brush our teeth, and we go to bed at night, we brush our teeth before we do that. But if every tooth in our mouth fell out, we'd be just fine. We may have to gum down our food, but we'd be just fine. We put all this effort into our teeth, and what are we putting into our heart and lungs? And so your body matters. You only get one. You may be able to replace some parts, thank goodness. But really, you have to live with this thing. You got to float around earth. And the less you do, the more pain you will eventually incur through sprains, strains, and tears, through falls, through lethargy. Life is not a lot of fun. Even if you make it to 85, if you're not in good shape and you haven't done a lifetime worth of work to earn healthy status, being stuck in a chair or bed all day probably stinks. So yeah, it's mindset. You got to understand the value. And then, I know you want to talk about this, is even those of us who have gone to extraordinary measures to keep our bodies healthy, sometimes tragedy happens. Sometimes we're hit by a bus, or a plane falls out of the sky and drops on our head, or we get diagnosed with a illness, perhaps genetic, perhaps environmental. But yeah, we need to prepare our bodies to do battle today, because if you are strong and healthy going into any situation, you are far more likely to rebound and recover faster than those who weren't. So, I ask groups all the time, is there any benefit on any given day to being weaker versus stronger? Any benefit? Answer is no. And it's not no, it's a hell no. So you move a little bit, you sit in your chair and you watch the Zoom and you lift your arms. If everybody listening and watching today, right now, starts lifting their arms, flap your arms like a bird. Okay, then we've accomplished something.
It's interesting that you talk about movement. My husband is not an exerciser. He talks about it, but it's
right.
As he says, it's not in his DNA. But he was watching a commercial the other day, and there's somebody who's sitting on the couch, and there's this thing that you put on the floor, and it moves your legs back and forth. And he says to me, oh, I should buy that. And he's always looking at things to buy. And I said, no, what you really need to do is get up and walk around the house a little bit, or go outside and take a walk. And yes, it's very cold and snowy here in Northeast Ohio, so he's probably not going to take that walk. But I said, I understand what that thing is for the person who really can't get up and move, but you need to try to move.
Well, and it's important to know the difference between these machines. If they're moving his legs, he's not exercising. That it might be increasing mobility and blood flow, but exercise is self-propelled. And what I recommend to you, if you have a husband, clearly you probably want him around a lot, you want to have a nice life together, is turn on some music and say, honey, let's dance. If it's about quality time, can you walk the dog with me? I'm feeling a little lonely, or I could use some company, whatever it is. Let's go to the baseball game. If you're going to the game, maybe you have to park and walk really far. Or shopping is exercise. You're walking around. And so, or at least it's being physically active. So yeah, invite him to dance. But if an apparatus is actually moving you, that's not exercise. It might help with mobility, but I don't want anyone to be confused.
Well, and I'm glad you said that. Now I have it on the record. So
yeah,
but tell us a little bit. You started really exercising completely after your injury. Okay. You
Yeah.
got yourself in better health, but the big C hit you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that way, the knee injury, and I started teaching fitness many moons ago. And since then I was a competitive kickboxer for many years, and a half marathoner, and an obstacle course racer, and a water sports junkie. And I really am the girl who walks the walk. I don't just tell people to exercise and then sit around. I live that healthy life fully. And so December of 2018, I went in for my annual mammogram, which is part of not only my and my professional platform, but something that I'm committed to. My attitude has always been, and I'm on record for many years saying, hey, if just one cancer cell comes near me, I want to know about it. And so I get those annual exams of all sorts, the pap smear and the mammo, and I get my eyes looked at because I'm Irish and I hear melanoma hides behind your eyes. And I get my skin checked and I do all the things. And so December of 2018, I walk in and I come out with a clean mammogram bill of health. Less than 6 weeks later, in a hotel bathroom at a race weekend, I rubbed my underboob and I found a lump. And it felt like there was a black bean under the skin. And I thought, oh gosh. And I knew what it was. And so what the most important thing I did that at that moment was I took action. I didn't call my mom and cry. I didn't whine to my friends or Google it. I picked up my phone within 30 seconds of finding the lump. And I called my gyno and I said, hey, I found a lump. And they said, hey, we'll get you in. And within 3 days I was there. They felt it. A few days later, I had mammogram, ultrasound. And, I didn't even tell my husband. I didn't tell anybody. I just thought, I'm not crying over milk that hasn't spilt yet. Maybe it's nothing. And so not only did they see the tumor, but the radiologist said, hey, we see 3 hard swollen lymph nodes we're really concerned about. And that's when the water work started. And I thought, oh gosh, I've got cancer. And then I thought, for sure, I'm dying. And the next day was a punch biopsy. And within a few days later, I was told, you have breast cancer. And, I'm the most positive person in the world. In fact, bad attitude and I don't know, negativity annoys me very much. But I just thought, with no data to back it up, I just thought, you know what? I have the perfect family, the perfect career. I'm traditionally the perfect image of health and happiness. I'm going to make the perfect tragic tale. And so I was hit pretty hard. I was very scared. And most importantly, I was scared about not seeing my children grow up. And any parent will tell you, it's them,
Yep.
I love me and I work hard to have a wonderful life too. But I look at Ginger and Parker and just, it was horrifying. So fortunately, my doctors, I gathered the A team, and the oncologist I met with, he said, hey, Fitz, listen, 94% of all breast cancer cases are curable. Your specific type of breast cancer is specifically curable. It's going to be rough, but you're going to be okay. And so that really was a turning point for me.
Even though your doctor told you that and you
Yeah.
have this positive attitude,
Yeah.
it still has to be very frightening.
Terrifying.
And there still has to be some doubt in the back of your mind.
Yep.
Is he telling me this because he wants me to fight harder? Or is it true? And again, none of us have a magic wand. We don't know.
Yeah.
But you had to go through chemo. You had to go through things that really bring you down.
Yeah.
How did you handle that?
Well, I was very human. It's funny. All the world reach out to say, you're the strongest girl I know, which is all very kind and stuff. But the reality is I'm human, and I'm a medical wimp and a needle phobe. And so it's not just fear of death. It was fear of the at least 1,000 pokes I received, constant needle pokes. And the MRI, I'm claustrophobic. I have all these things of strength. Things for me are going really well, but there's a few things. There are hot button issues, and needles and tight spaces are one of them. And so there was a lot of fear and tears. There were a lot of tears. And one of the things that I found myself doing throughout the treatment, and my treatment course was, I had 15 months of chemo. The first 5 months we called the mean chemo because it was particularly brutal. And for me, I was violently ill every day for 5 months. It was horrible. And of course, I went bald, and I had all sorts of crazy symptoms, which is kind of why I wrote the book, because nobody talks about the weird stuff, nobody talks. They were like, hey, you might be sick, you might be tired, you might be bald. And I was all those things. But then my nails ripped off and I had a skunk stripe in my head and my eyes changed colors. And so there was all these wackadoo things. So, but I had 15 months of chemo, 33 rounds of radiation, lumpectomy. They took a bunch of lymph nodes. And so that was where I went. But what I found myself doing, and I've never been a self-talk person, but when I was going towards one of these, like an MRI or going towards chemo, I would remind myself, hey, you can do hard things. You have built an international business and you were a competitive kickboxer and you've raised 2 great kids. You're really good at doing hard things. You can do hard things. And what I didn't even realize, it just became this mantra. I kept talking to myself. I wasn't telling anyone that I was talking to myself, but that's how I was able to put one foot in front of the other. And that's actually like the I can do hard things sticker.
Yes, I love that.
That's the gift with purchase. But yeah, I had to remind myself every day in all sorts of circumstances that I could do hard things. And eventually I had said it enough that I was done with it all. And now I'm still convincing myself I can do hard things because I do take on some pretty absurd challenges sometimes. But yeah, it was tough. And yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
Well, and anybody who says cancer is not tough, they're not telling us the truth. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not I don't care who you are. It's not an easy process.
It comes with various grades of difficulty. Some people
Right.
get off pretty easy, and then many of us go through, get dragged behind a horse. But it's okay. That's okay.
Well, and for those who are listening, it doesn't have to be necessarily cancer that, attacks us. It can be
Yeah.
anything physical, anything emotional.
Yeah.
I'm going through an immune diagnosis right now.
Okay.
And the
sorry to hear that.
medication they've put me on, they say it's like a very light chemotherapy.
Okay.
And I can't imagine going through chemotherapy because of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Because within a half hour after I take the medication, I feel foggy, I'm nauseous, but I too keep saying to myself, I need to do this. I'm going to do this. And yeah, there are days like last night when I said, no, I'm not going to ride my stationary bike tonight. I need to give myself permission.
Yeah.
But there are other nights and most nights that I say, no, I've got to, because that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me strong. That makes me know that I am alive and well. So for those listening, you don't have to have the entrepreneurship that Fitz has, although it's phenomenal what
Oh,
you've
thank you.
created. But you have to have that inner strength. And I think we all have it if we allow ourselves to feel it.
So you're right. And so besides the mantra of I can do hard things, this is some decisions I made right up front that I think were priceless, and you could use them in any sort of difficult situation. Number one, I chose to lean on perspective. And many years ago, I was at the grocery store and I went into the 10 items or less lane and with my small amount of items. And I stood in line behind a woman who was 9 million years old and she had 75,000 items and she was paying with a check. And internally, I was grousing. I would have never said something to her face, but inside I was thinking, OMG, are you kidding me? And then I looked next door in the aisle next to me, the checkout lane, and there was a beautiful little shiny Snow White dress on a little girl with a very bald head. And at that point, I was reminded that this checkout lane wasn't so bad. That poor child, what she must be going through, and her parents. And moving forward, if it wasn't cancer, I was going to have a good attitude and make the best of any situation. And so then all of a sudden it was cancer. And I also, I thought, okay, I could have the pity party. But that just doesn't suit me. I don't enjoy, I don't admire the victim mentality. It doesn't ever appeal to me. So I chose to be the victor. And by that, number one, I chose to have perspective. So it was cancer, but I wasn't a kid with cancer and it wasn't my kid with cancer. And so I wasn't going to have a pity party. I wasn't going to complain. I was going to just suck it up like a good little soldier and get through it. Did I cry? I did. And I'd cry alone in my bathroom, usually, not to impose on my family. But I I got through it without being miserable, without why me. Never once did I have the why me. Number two, I chose to pursue my passions. And this is important for everybody every day, sick, hurt, or not, is that you have to have things in your life that lift you up, that fill you up and make you feel like you. And so for me, I decided right away, no matter what was going to happen. Now, mind you, I had no idea what I was in for. But I decided I was not missing special moments with my kids. If they had a game, a performance, a graduation, et cetera, I was going to be there come hell or high water. And I was. And the other thing I decided was I was not letting go of my career. And so my career puts me on a plane almost every weekend of the year, or most of them, and jets me all around the country. And it requires a heck of a lot of work, but I love my events. I knew that if I missed any of these events, I would just sit home crying, and depression certainly wasn't going to help my situation. And so I made that commitment. I was going to go and I was going to figure it out. And so if you love music, if you can't play music because your hands are broken, fine. Listen to music, watch videos of music. If you're in the hospital and you love animals and you can't be on your farm, watch funny animal videos. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to keep your passions going under any circumstances. And that could be a lifesaver. And then last but not least, I chose to be positive. And I found out pretty quickly, you get absolutely no extra points for being a sad sap, for being the most miserable girl in the room. There was no benefit to that. And some people have that in their nature, and I feel sad for them. I empathize. I'm naturally sunny. And, again, I was sick, but if somebody said something funny, I chose to laugh. And so perspective, passions, positivity, you got to make decisions. You have to control the things you can. And the things I could control were my behavior, my attitude. And it's interesting, towards the end of the mean chemo, and I had really fallen apart. I had broken down dramatically. I hadn't been able to exercise for 3 months, and I was hospitalized at one point. And again, every cell in my body had something wrong with it. And my oncologist, he says, Fitz, you've done so great. And I looked at him and I was like, what are you talking about? I have not done great. I'm a mess. I'm a basket case. And he said, no, you've done so well. And I said, why are you saying that? He said, listen, I agree that you have suffered. You have had a lot of suffering, and I feel bad for that. He said, however, if you were not so healthy and fit coming into this, you would have been hospitalized for a month. You would have had a feeding tube and a drain. You would have had infections because of those tubes and drains. Instead, you only got hospitalized over one night, and I had some transfusions, which I didn't like. But he said, instead of being hospitalized for a month, you traveled the country having more adventure than most grownups have in a lifetime. So yes, you've suffered, but your health and fitness worked. The thing that you came in here so proud of, it worked. It sustained you. And that's the message is, control what's in your brain. And then right now, today, this instant, start respecting your body. Start watching what you put in your mouth, because there's food that hurt and there's foods that help. Choose more foods that help. You can still have some of the hurtful stuff for fun on occasion, but then figure out how to move your body, make it strong. And my recovery was long, and I had to be patient. So I started, I was emaciated. I lost a lot of weight and I was weak, but I went through baby steps, and eventually I got there. So yeah, respect the body, respect the mind, do better.
Well, and it's everything you're saying is so important. I think most of us know it, but we get very complacent.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that positive attitude that we allow to come out, I know for a very long time, I walked around thinking, there's nothing positive in my life. Even though I could sort of feel it in my gut, I wasn't
Yeah.
allowing it to come out.
Yeah.
And when I finally did, and actually it was through the help of my husband, he saw me getting very, very depressed. And one night he just said to me, we're going to the comedy club. And I looked at him and I said, there's no way. I don't want to laugh. I'm not going to the comedy club. He said, you're coming. And if you want to sit there and cry, you can. If you want to sit there and just ignore everything, I don't care. We're going. And I went begrudgingly. However, within the first couple minutes, I started smiling. And then from smiling, I went to laughing.
Love
And
it.
when I walked out of there, I felt like I was on a cloud. And the first thing my husband asked me is, how are you feeling? And I said, I'm not having any pain right now. And he said, physically or emotionally? I said, both. Wasn't sure what I felt, but I didn't feel pain. And
Well,
and he took me the following week, and it became a routine until I realized I don't have to go to the comedy club to laugh.
yeah.
I can laugh anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. We have so much control, and I don't like feeling down and depressed. And so I really, like I said, I empathize with someone who feels that way naturally. And I hope they get whatever medical help they need to help alleviate those feelings that just,
Right.
come over like a wave. But we do have a lot of control over our outcomes and our mood. And, for me, that choice to pursue my career, it's funny. I would go to board the plane in Gainesville. This is where I live, Gainesville, Florida. And my husband would drop me off at like 5 a.m. in the airport. We'd be standing in front of TSA, and he would look at me, look into my glossy eyes and my bald head. I never wore a wig, so I looked the part. And he would say, "How are you going to do this?" And I just would look back and say, "Well, I just will." And then I had to manage violent stomach bug symptoms on an airplane and a terminal, and the whole thing. I would go to my point B, get IV fluids there. I would sleep on the hotel bathroom sick all night, wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning because races start early. And then magically, once I stepped onto my stages with all of those people, all of everything that was wrong with me dissipated. I didn't feel the sickness, and I didn't have the headaches. I had this green sludge under my skull that just disappeared when I was race announcing. All the bad things, or most of the bad things, whisked away because I was laser focused on something, everything but me. And the thing that I was focused on was this pack of humans who are working really hard for their own health, great causes, their communities. They're the most wonderful people on planet Earth. And so how could I possibly focus on me? And so that was this incredible gift of that decision to, forge on. Because if I hadn't had those moments race announcing, and they were long days, 10 hours at a marathon or 5 hours here, I would have just been sick. That's all I would have been. All I would have been is a sick person. But thanks to those decisions, I was a race announcer. I was noisy. I was fun. I was energetic. I got stranger hugs. And, I never cowered from any of it. I never wore a mask. I was the most immunocompromised person on planet Earth at one point. And man, I got every hug that I could get. And my life was better for those people. So find the thing that makes your life better, and then force it. Even if you don't want to get up and go, obviously your husband encouraged you. Not everyone has a great spouse. So
Right.
figure it out. Just show up somewhere, anywhere but your dark, dreary bedroom. And eventually someone will distract you in the right way. And you'll go, oh, okay, this is what Fitz was talking about. I'll come here more often, and then just keep going.
So how did your children handle all this?
You know what? Interesting. At first, my son, he was 14 at the time, and I gave them the good news, bad news. I was like, hey, or the bad news, good news. Hey, look, bad news, I got breast cancer. Good news, totally curable. I'm going to look weird, feel sick, and I'll be fine. It's one of those things. I still wasn't convinced I was going to live, but the things you do for your kids, right? So he was very sweet. He took it peacefully, as he's a quiet kid, and he goes, I think you're going to look really cute bald. And I just thought, oh, bless your
Wow.
heart. Yeah, swoon, right? So Parker was easy. Ginger was 16 at the time, and she was devastated. She sobbed. It was very painful to go through that reveal process with her. But as my kids are very, very resilient, as many are, they quickly turned into making fun of mom's bald head and laughing, and they have their own wonderful lives, busy school days and sports and acting and so forth. So we never took them to a scary appointment. I only took them to two. One was a celebration of finishing radiation, where I rang a bell. The second was they showed up at the end of my final chemo, and we did a TikTok dance in the lobby. But yeah, I kept them away from the scary stuff. And fortunately, they're just funny, sarcastic, bright kids, and they handled it really well.
And that's wonderful. And that's
Yeah.
part of your personality, and obviously your husband's as well, because
Yeah.
without that positive reinforcement, that probably would not have been as easy for them.
No.
And I know as a parent, we tend to want to do everything for our kids. Even sometimes, grit our teeth and lie just to make them feel
Yep.
more comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I totally understand that. I have two grown sons, and when I tell them anything about my health, it's always, well, we're not going to worry about it. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to tell you because I don't want you to be surprised.
Right.
But you know what? I'm still doing all the things I need to do, and I'm going to continue to do those. And on the rare occasion when I don't, I might, ask for your help, although I'm not very good at asking for help. So, what I love about your journey is that, you know, you you admit that you're human, that
Very,
that you
very.
know how to cry,
Yep.
that you've been in pain, but you look for the answers to get through it, because sitting on your couch, withering in pain,
No.
people are eventually going to ignore you.
Uh, You know what? I mean, it's just so bad. I look at what the government has done to people. I mean, preventing diagnosis by preventing early exams. And I mean, there's been so many bad decisions on behalf of the government that have been so harmful to humans. But if I had been isolated, I just can't imagine. I look I look back on my cancer experience and I think two things. I think, holy crap, I can't believe that happened to me. I can't believe I was bald. And I look back at some of these outlandish experiences and I can't believe it happened to me. But the further and further I get away from it, the more proud I am by the way I handled it. And again, like, I was human, and I hope everybody could have this experience. I have a unique career that provides some rock star moments, but just in general, I look back and I think, yeah, I did that the right way. And that's really one of the greatest gifts I have from the book now is that, and I don't like to, it's interesting as we talk about me, my whole career has been about helping you. It's helping others live better and longer. I don't usually post pictures of me exercising and stuff. It's all been about how do I help the other people. But now I find that, these words in the pages have all these cancer patients reaching out and saying, I am doing so much better now after your book. I feel stronger. I feel more capable. There's far more women rocking the bald head, which is great. I mean, wigs are fine too, if that makes you happy. To me, they were uncomfortable and they made me feel sad. So I just decided, no, I was sad enough. I didn't need anything else on my shoulders. But it's nice to be able to help people. I really, I figured it out just kind of the hard way. I didn't have any guidance, but those things that were already important to me, being trying to be happy and always using perspective and doing the things I love. I hope no matter what happens to me, I do that. I'm the person who thinks, God forbid I was a quadriplegic if I got hit, because that happens to people. How would I do what I do? I would figure it out. And I want everybody else to be of like mind, that you figure it out, because you only get one life. And, even with Betty White, 99 years old, almost 100, and we think, damn it, too short.
Yeah.
So, however many days, make it a good one, fill your days up. And I lost a friend last year, 50 years young. She was beautiful and athletic and wonderful. And she had an aneurysm and just basically disappeared. But she had a life well lived. And that makes me so happy for her, that she had a life filled with adventure and success and family and friends. And, do that for yourself today and inspire your kids and your friends too, because we can all have a really good life. Nobody has to miss out on that.
Well, and that's one of the main reasons why we started Avoid the Maze, because we are all walking through a maze of life.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're going to have your bad days, you're going to have your good days, but we have a choice to have more good days than bad
That's
days.
right.
And I always share this. My father was, he was born in 1917. He was a victim of the Spanish flu.
Oh gosh.
And his mother was told when he was around 3 or 4 months old, your son is not going to make it. My father obviously made it because he became my
Yeah,
father.
there you are.
And yet it affected his heart. He didn't know he had a bad heart until right after he got married and was turned down when he went to enlist for World War II. So my father lived with pain for many years, not even knowing where it was from.
Right.
But he woke up every morning and he looked in the mirror and he said, "Good morning, handsome. It's a great day." And I remember as a young kid hearing him bellow that from the downstairs bathroom. And I would laugh like, "You're not supposed to say that about yourself, you know?"
Yeah.
But I understood it, especially in the last couple weeks of his life. He still had that positive energy. He knew he was dying. Okay.
Yeah.
He didn't tell us he was dying. He didn't want us to even think that way, which was wonderful on his end. But he would always tell us, that he was one of the luckiest men in the world.
Love it.
And, you know, I got my strength from him because it's like, you know what? Even on my weakest days,
Yeah.
I can't think about anything other than the better tomorrow I'm going to have.
So beautiful. Number one, how fortunate of you to have such a delightful father, was powerful, I should say. But it reminds me, about a month or so ago, I was in Alabama to give a keynote. And I'm a bit of a bull in a china shop sometimes. I say what's on my mind, and I speak very honestly, and sometimes it's brutal honesty. But my keynote, pushing the envelope with the 3 Ps. So the things we've talked about: perspective, passions, positivity. But I am going through perspective and this and that, and again, fairly forthright about everything. And everybody in the room is kind of like nodding gently. And then there's a woman in a wheelchair, and she is like pumping her fist. Yeah, there's a blind guy in the corner. And, it's the people that struggle the most get it. She'd never felt like, oh, I was offending her because I was saying you gotta, suck it up and move on. She was like, right on. You are speaking the truth. Thanks for speaking for all of us. So yeah, I mean, similar type of attitudes. And of course, these were people, they were out, like going out to exercise and stuff. She's in a wheelchair. She's racing in a wheelchair. We have so many people like that. It's just, I don't know. We can choose to be stoppable or not. And I choose not to be.
Well, I love it. So tell us a little bit about your book. How can we find it? Because, I think all of us can get some strength from it.
Yeah. And they can have some good laughs at my expense. That's really, I thought about, people need to hear this good stuff. And then they hear about all the ridiculous insanity that went on when my breast cancer collided with race announcing and travel. And it's very, very funny. People say I cried a little, but I laughed a whole lot. So that's more importantly, but it's called My Noisy Cancer Comeback: Running at the Mouth While Running for My Life. And it's available wherever books are sold. So Amazon and Barnes and Noble, yada, yada. However, if people come to Fitzness, that's FITZNESS.com. If you order from me on Fitzness.com, all the books are autographed. And I put the I Can Do Hard Things stickers in as a free gift. So and then it's audiobook, ebook. You can get it wherever you want to get it, but it's doing well and it's helping a lot of people. And again, you could laugh at my expense, which is really what I'm out for. A few good laughs.
Well, I love it. You've been wonderful today. I want to thank you for being with us and starting off our new year with a lot of hope. And
Good.
you've been excellent. We'll have to have you on again. Okay.
I would love that, Karen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.